The first thing I would like to give an overview about is some, I think, very good examples of how fast the world is changing. Then I would like to talk about the platform business in a nutshell and understanding what are the underlying factors and the drivers of the businesses and the change that we are currently experiencing. And lastly, I would like to give a few tips also how leaders, how CEOs, CMOs are driving the organization to a better digital experience and a customer first approach. Let's have a view on the first examples. I see that, yep, I hope that you can also see now slide number 3. For example, Woolworths. Woolworths as a food retailer in the last 2 years went through dramatic change. As you probably know, Australia is the country with the longest lockdown on the planet. And so users were staying at home. Food retailers didn't have their clients and customers in the shops. And what we see is that we have an increase of the e-commerce model, of the online shopping, but we also see, and that is, I think, here the interesting news, that Woolworths have just launched in everyday market place, and they want to create critical mass, not only for their apples, their milk, and their sugar, but they want to drive other smaller brands, and they want to maybe even at one day come close to Amazon or to eBay to be a real platform. Because the trucks are driving anyhow, the frequency of food retail is very high because you have to order almost every week. And therefore, I think it's a very good example how now Woolworths is understanding finally that the user journey is a question of data, frequency, and traffic. And their food retailers are in a very, very good position to have a broader offering and a broader portfolio than just the food retail. That is, I think, one very, very nice example here. If we go further, I'm just going through my presentation here. Then on the next slide, we see, and that is something I choose from China. There, yeah, it's loading, I hope, yeah. I see here, or you see there on the left-hand side, a beggar. And that beggar normally, as far as we know from the Western world, are asking for some coins, asking for some cash. But also they had to change because mobile payment and touch less payment is on the way. So you see here he has 2 QR codes. The green is a 5 cent and the blue is a 10 cent. And actually you walk by with your mobile phone and you throw something virtually in his beggar box. We saw also that Subway in the last couple of years were changing from cash, then to credit card, then to mobile pay, and now they are offering already Bitcoins to make their payments. But what I think is most interesting, and I will come back to this, is actually the social commerce, which is not e-commerce anymore. It's a mobile-enabled social commerce. And we will later see what I mean with that. On the next slide, we see a very interesting trend also from China, but I see also that the first trials are made in the Western world and also in Europe. That is our key market here for today. We see actually an influencer, Austin Lee. I don't know if you are aware of him. He is not only a very known lipstick model, and that's already interesting because he's a man or male, and he is also having millions of followers, and he can not only influence what color and what trend is actually up this year for China, but he can even influence share prices. When he said, for example, that the lipstick colors from Hermes are not fitting to the Asian or the Chinese customers, the market share from Hermes was dropping tremendously. This person alone in 24 hours on the China single day was actually generating $145 million via live stream. So that's a new norm. I know that's not yet there on this magnitude in EMEA, but I think that's a place to watch. He also sold 3 10-carat diamonds just via a live stream in one day. So I think that is the future. That's the video, the images, the live interaction that will be the future. So it is still e-commerce. Yes, I agree. But then it's much more now coming social commerce. And if we look a little bit further, then it's actually the influencers that are driving the traffic of tomorrow, but also the content and the commerce of tomorrow. If we go to the next page, and we see that digital business models are also totally changing. So when we look at any car manufacturer, in the past, they were selling cars, and that was where the main part of revenue comes from. Nowadays, they are leasing cars, they are doing after-sales services, they are financing, they are charging, they do remote software updates and enable maybe a heater for the seats or another built-in function that you can then later on buy online and actually enable by paying then a little bit extra for having additional services in or around your car. That's today. Tomorrow, I see a totally different world again. I see the sharing mobility, especially when autonomous cars are coming in. And also we see that the current sales model of cars is dramatically changing. I see this in around 5 to 6 years in some markets, but it fully kicks in with the autonomous driving. In the moment, there are a lot of trials, like Sixt is doing a trial in Munich. I know that in Vegas, basically every autonomous driving company is doing trials, but it's not yet ready for a broader use. But what this chart is telling us is basically something else. Imagine for a moment that you sit in a connected car, in a device, let's say a Mercedes. And this car is sending permanent signals to the headquarters. So Mercedes should know who is sitting in the car, where they turn off the car in the evening, probably that's where they live, where they drive their car in the morning, that's probably where these users are working. And in the moment, in all OEMs that I know, except maybe Tesla, these data is not yet leveraged by the marketing departments at all. And think about further in this use case, you would have speakers in the car. You would have a very nice screen, big screens in the car. So the marketing department, if they would be enabled and if they would use their data, they could interact with the user in the car. For example, a sensor is telling that there is ice or snow for the first time in autumn on the road, and you need winter tires. And then you can connect this driver and say, hey, you want to order winter tires? Yes, that seems to be convenient. And hey, do you want to maybe order them on your way to work? Because you're driving by of one of our dealerships, it's just a 500-meter turnaround, and then you would be there. Do you want to actually already schedule a meeting? Yes, okay. And so the whole interaction and marketing experience is changing just on this little use case that I'm describing here. That's the future. So we have to think out of the box. We have to think out of the organizations and the structures and the silos that we currently have built in all our businesses, especially in the legacy businesses. If we go to the next slide, here you see that augmented realities, virtual realities are coming into play. I choose here the example of a Tommy Hilfiger flagship store, and you can see that's quite playful. So when you put on these glasses, you can try every different dress in every different color without actually trying it on. You just see it on your glasses, on your screens. But I think that's still playful lab applications. I'm thinking much more about real connected devices. For example, now in Australia, we have around 40% of all our TVs are already smart TVs. So they are connected to the internet. So we would know exactly what consumers are looking at, what kind of advertising they're seeing, what kind of movies and preferences they have in the living room. And in the moment, I don't see really that this data is 100% leveraged. Obviously, in WPP, when we worked on Group M, we were making the first use cases, and we had a big success by understanding users' behavior in a better way. We could measure it, and we could also increase relevance and efficiency. So these are just some examples how you digitize your branches, your shopping experiences, and also the ROI of your media spend. Let's look at the next page. Here, I want to discuss a little bit about the platform technology and the platform economy. We see here, and I choose this picture because I'm European, and I always find it very sad when I see that actually there are just two big countries which are driving the digital platform economy. And that is China, and that is on the other side, US. And why is that so? The first thing we have to understand is the paradigm of critical mass. So as bigger the market is that you can approach, as bigger your portfolio and your services and your products are, as more people you attract on your platform, as more people you attract on your platform, as more data you collect, as smarter you get, as better and as more relevant your offers are. And then again, other users and customers are coming to your platform. That is true for the Apple, the Amazon, the Googles, the Facebook, the Microsoft, but on the other side, also Alibaba, Tencent, and Samsung. And it was very interesting because when I prepared for this little speech here, I had an old chart from 2018, and I was updating the numbers. These are all market caps from 2-3 days ago. And interestingly, on the gray side, on the US side, the numbers almost all doubled. On the blue side, on the China side, the numbers were staying a bit the same or growing like 20 or 30%, but not doubling. That's very interesting. And two other things I found very interesting here. You might be across that China, the China government just released a new law that actually Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu, JD.com, they have to now allow links into the other platforms. Before, there were super powerful apps, mega apps, and these ecosystems were not connected. So when you are on a WeChat app, WeChat tried everything to keep you in their ecosystem with their payment, with their e-commerce, with their entertainment, with their videos. And now the government said, no, now you have to put in links into the other system. On the US side or the Western world, it was totally different. Actually, the opposite. So Facebook and Google, that's a business model. They link into other platforms like Amazon, but like many, many more. And there we see now with the disappearing of the cookie that actually it is harder to identify or re-identify the user and specific behavior of that user in this surrounding. So you probably lose a little bit of understanding where your users are coming from and what they are having for a history when they land on your platform. So these ecosystems on the Western world get smarter, get bigger. Facebook and Google are, I think, very much ahead, but they are getting more disconnected and more siloed. And on the China side, they were totally siloed and disconnected, and now the government decided that they are working more together. So at the end, I think we will see that also some of these big platforms are swapping over. I think the first one, as we all experience, is TikTok. That is already one global platform, but we might see some other platforms going global on both sides of the wall. We, on the other side, see also that just LinkedIn pulled out of China because they were not happy with the compliance and the regulations on the China side. But it's the learning here is it's critical mass, is understanding the users within the ecosystem. And finally, and that is for me the most important thing, we can, as advertisers, not rely on the data that these platforms are offering to us. We have to generate our own data. We have to leverage our connected devices. In the example of the car, I was talking about it before. If we go to the next slide, I think that's also a very interesting development, and this will continue from my point of view. We were starting the internet with information, with words, with text, but nowadays, basically 90%, maybe even 95% of the whole internet traffic is video and it's images. And this trend will continue. When we see that how young people, teenagers are now consuming any kind of information, it is for sure in image, and mostly it is a video. So we have to watch that space. And sometimes I still see that advertisers are developing first a big web page that is not even responsive and not even able to be played on a mobile. And we have to rethink that. We have to come from a video and from an image perspective when we want to achieve a good customer experience. And we have to step away from the old classical websites and coming to the mobile websites. I think that's the future. Coming to the next slide. So, that seems all easy. Very easy, right? So, yep, sure, we know what digital marketing is all about, Jens. Don't tell us. We are already very well educated. But there is a big thing, and I would like to draw your attention to that. Actually, 80% or more than 80% of digital transformation projects are failing. And why is that? Why the hell we don't get it done when it seems to be so easy and when actually all the tools and the technology is there? My learning over the last 10 years, digital transformation is maybe 20% tech. And it's good that leaders understand and know about tech. But 80% is the human factor. And that is where we struggle with. Imagine the following scenario. When I was chief digital officer of the BMW group, then we said, we have to change now. We have to change from combustion engines to electric engines. Seems easy and seems very good for the environment and seems necessary. And actually, the trend and the customers are going in this direction. Okay. Just imagine for a moment BMW, that is Bavarian Motor Works, is telling their best, worldwide best, 20,000 combustion engine engineers, well, actually, you are very good, but now we are going with battery cars and we are going with electric cars. So basically, we don't need you anymore. There's obviously a ramp down and a ramp up, But it was a very, very interesting experience when we had to go out, and we were consulting with the former CEO, and we were saying, what do we do? Do we tell them? Do we be transparent? Or do we just, let it happen? At the end of the day, I said, "Oh, Jens, can you go and let them know?" I said, "Yeah, sure." Having many friends already on the digital side, we told them we were transparent and we were describing what's in for us, what's in for them, and what's in for the users. And this little change from combustion to the electric engine is just the beginning. If you think about autonomous driving, shared mobility services, you click a button on your mobile phone and a car is coming at your way and you jump in and you jump out. That's the future. That's maybe 5 to 6 years out, depending on the regulator, maybe 8 to 10 years out. We don't know that yet. But again, the business model will rapidly change. And we see that the human factor driving these changes is the most dramatic one, and influencing the success of the change and the transformation we are driving. We have to understand that most of the people who are at the top, they were coming to this top with a different experience, with a different knowledge, with a different capabilities and background. And now when they are at the top and they, be a master of every combustion engine in the world or the diesel engine, then suddenly you have to change and you have to learn something new, or you have to let the other guy doing your things and you have to step aside. And that's a very, very difficult process for every brain and for every leader and for every employee in an organization. So we have to really make sure that we bring our people behind what we are doing and explain to them the why we are doing it. Because the customer wants it, because we have to care for the environment, and actually because it's much better for our planet. And then we can go in this direction. On the next slide, we look at the here and now, and we also see there are many examples where customer experience is really worse or lagging behind. When you look at banks, for example, or you see a lot of branches, they are all over the place and they have the same problem that I just described in terms of change. There is a head of branches, there's a head of sales, there are maybe 1,000 or more people running these branches, but the branches are empty. And after COVID, they will be even more empty. And you can then continue in your strategy, or you have to rethink and you have to restructure. And that means sometimes even that you have to restructure or eliminate your own position and your own remit. But only if you empower and embrace these changes, then the people in the organization will follow. The next example is a German one. I know it's EMEA and everybody speaks English, but I like this, or I was crying so much about it that I put this sentence here from a German side. There was a big bank informing me that I'm now living in Sydney and not in Germany anymore. And so they want to have an evidence and a proof that I paid tax in Sydney in Australia. And the fun part was I could not respond to them via email. I could not respond to them via WhatsApp. I could not phone them. The only suggestion they gave me, you can send us a letter, or, and I put this here in red, you can send us a fax. A fax. That is like, I think, 20 years ago that we were using that kind of technology. But, they thought it's a good customer experience still using a fax. So finally, I found a fax app on my mobile phone. So they were receiving a fax from me and then they were happy. Another example, and for all of the ones that you have kids, I think it's the most dramatic and most important one for all of us. When we see that the speed of change, the acceleration of change, the digitalization, everything we are doing, then you have to scratch your head sometimes because we see in the classroom, basically for the last 100 years, no change. And it would not have changed at all if we would not have COVID. Only an external event is now suddenly driving homeschooling, online schooling. And I don't think that's the best experience. I received, as a father of 3 children, many, many letters. Print out this, you know, send us a photo of that, send this letter back to the school. And it's actually dramatic because our kids are the future and they have to be educated in a futuristic way, in a most futuristic and digital way, and not in blackboards and papers. So I think now we will finally see a change. And the yellow thing here is the nice vaccination pass. That was also on paper for the last, I don't know, 40, 50 years. And again, it needed an external event to actually change it. From a e-commerce perspective, I put some numbers in where you see the red bars on the very right side of the slide from China, where numbers of percentage of e-commerce are now at 57%. That means less people are buying physical in the stores and more people are buying online. And if you see the German figures, then you see they were rising slightly from 8.9% to 11.5%. That's quite embarrassing. But on the other side, I think we have to also consider that the change, the need for change, is a human thing. And if the users in Europe are still a little bit more traditional, then this change is going slower. But I have a bet that actually this slow change or adoption is actually done by the companies because they are defending their status quo instead of embracing the new way of working and the more omni-channel approach. Okay, that's enough of bad examples, but I think it's also important in our daily world and our current status that we are with open eyes looking at all these examples and wanting to change them hopefully quickly. On the next, I put a little bit together what I think are the most important factors of success if you want to digitize your customer model and the customer experience. The first one is, yes, customer experience is everything. And I described on the slide before what is bad customer experience. A good customer experience is that you can basically do any transaction, any dialogue, any information with 1 or 2 clicks on your mobile phone. That's a very good customer experience. And the content, that is another very important thing, should be relevant for the users. And that is only if you understand the data and if you're driving a data ownership. That's the second box here. I think less than 30% of advertisers and companies in the moment have a clear and right data first strategy and a data strategy in place and an ownership for the data strategy. Then on the right hand side, you see marketing, sales, IT in sync, a biz dev ops model. That means that CIO, CMO, Chief Customer Officer, actually have to work hand in hand. The old model is that the CIO is trying to reduce cost and risk. The CMO tries to achieve something and drives digital implementations with some consultancies. And actually, that doesn't work very well because normally the CMOs are not that digital savvy. and the CIO is not supporting, and then there's a sales responsible who is still believing that his whole sales troops and interactions are the right one. If these people are not coming together in a BizDevOps model, then you basically cannot change the customer experience in the right way. Targeting and relevance. So don't spam users. It's fantastic when you sometimes go on an automotive site, also today, then they say, welcome to Volkswagen. We have this. And you basically say, wait a second. When I Googled my specific model, I wanted to know what I can buy here in, let's say, London, and what is the right thing for me. And I actually told you already what brand, what model, and what make I want. And still I'm landing then in a Volkswagen.uk with all these big choice, but not with the real relevant examples and landing pages that I need. The customer interface, that's an interesting one. Sometimes we tend to give away our customer interface without even thinking about it. Once I had an engineer coming to me and said, hey, Jens, look, we actually now can open the car with a mobile phone. And you say, oh, that's great. So now Apple can open our cars. Why the heck we cannot do it with all our cameras, with all our sensors? Why is the car not recognizing my face or my fingerprint and open them? Why actually is it that the third party, in this case Apple, is able to open our car? And when you think the interior of the car, that's the next one, then it's even worse, because we implement Apple CarPlay, we implement Android Auto, we implement Baidu in the car with a big customer interface. Instead of building an Audi Siri or a Volkswagen Siri ourselves, and we have our own operating system in the car, and we are driving the dialogue that we need with our users. I think that's the main part. And there we have to be careful that we don't give away the interface. So these are the 6, I think, main dimensions of a successful client interaction. And if you follow me on the next one, then you see here a slide where I put together the future of advertising, what I call future of advertising. Everything starts with the white person. The white person is a user. You need to understand who that is. And that is only possible if you have the right IT infrastructure, the right system landscape, not the legacy one, a cloud-based one. You are collecting data, you understand what they want, you build a unique customer ID. Then you automate your analytics in real time, in milliseconds. A campaign manager like Sitecore, Adobe, or Salesforce is kicking in, getting the right individualized content out of the content warehouse, and the right offer and the right price and the right service that the user needs over then the right channel. That's the future of marketing. It sounds easy, but it's actually very hard. But wherever you want to start, you should start in all of these different boxes in parallel. But be careful, because sometimes there are consultants, there are sometimes also other vendors that are coming to you and selling you the world. I would be very, very careful, especially if they sell you the dream, because normally from the efficiency potential and the effectiveness, you will have a gain of around maybe 15, maybe 20%, but you will for sure not achieve the 100% that is promised from your consultant. When we look at the Gartner hype cycle, we see that obviously the multi-channel marketing hubs are already on a very productive stage. We see that social analytics are on a very productive stage. We see that mobile marketing and analytics are on the right scale. We see the first personalization and the first mobile wallet marketing. I talked about it earlier. I talked about the influencers, but mostly now it is next best offer, next best activity based on the user behavior and based on the real-time data stream. And the most funny example, I think, is always AI. When people are talking about AI, there are four very, very simple questions. The first one is, do you have the right IT system landscape? Are you fully cloud-based? If that is a yes, okay, then we go one step further. Do you have the right data layer, a central data layer on top of all your legacy systems? Is that data layer responsive and is that real time? Yes. Okay. Then you can implement analytics and BI. That's the third question. Do you have this in order? Do you know what users are doing on your websites, on your apps? And then if you say yes, then we can go into AI. If you don't have the other prerequisites ready, there will not be any success and any efficiency gains from the AI. So quickly, just some final words on how we are actually driving Sitecore, Salesforce, or Adobe. You see here the blue line. That is normally the implementation. Why? Because the advertiser want to have more and want to make sure that he gets the most from Deloitte or Accenture or other implementers. So they are planning, they have a long negotiation, and the consultant, they want to sell warm bodies. So as more and as longer a project go, as more money they make. So instead of doing these old waterfall models, you want to jump on the green stage and you want to drive a performance-based model and actually an API-based implementation of your services and not going into the old contracting model that we saw the years before. What I find very interesting, there's a small company here in Australia called Triggerfish, and they actually, instead of using 3 to 6 months before they are implementing, like consultancies are doing, they have a fully automated onboarding and API base, and they can actually implement Sitecore within 3 to 5 days. And that is then a success, and that doesn't cost so much money. And that actually is enabling then all the fantastic features that Sitecore is offering. So that's probably a company to watch. Another final one, just going up here, is the out of home business. I think there is a big other trend because that is growing like hell. So with a CAGR of almost 9% globally, and in the US a CAGR of 14%, we will have very soon a 50 billion business. And again, the digital side of out of home is much better because you can measure ROI. You can maybe advertise a cappuccino or coffee in the morning and KFC midday, and then maybe in the evening you can advertise the movie. But that is only possible if the screens are digitized. And there's another small company that I found very interesting, and it's another watch out. That's called Verido. Verido is a company that have implemented patented IP pixel, and actually in every digital billboard, in every artwork, they can measure in real time if the artwork was played or not. It's an independent source. It normally increases your ROI by around 15 to 20%. Because when maybe in an empty mall, when it's closed, the screens are still flashing, but nobody is watching. That's what you don't want as an advertiser. And the old way of measuring it was just trusting the out-of-home companies and their reports. And the new way, like Group M is already doing, I think, in Australia, as well as in New Zealand, and very soon also in UK, is measuring out of home in a digital way with Verido. So that's the thing to watch. All right, so we are probably almost at the end of our journey here, and the overview that I would like to do with you. There are two more things I would like to add. The first one is, it's very concerning that in our world, the CEOs, especially in the UK in the last decade, are actually getting 3 years older. So instead of driving the digital immigrants into the front line and driving the company into a more digital agenda, we are increasing the age of the CEOs. Same for the chairmen. They went in the last decade up from 57 years now to almost 61 years. So that's something that we should watch closely, because if you want to digitize a business, then probably you don't need people that are digital immigrants and not digital natives. So when you drive transformation as a leader, you want to drive it with a purpose and not with a profit. You want to empower your people. You want to drive a totally different culture of a teamwork and not a hierarchy. You don't want to spend all your time in planning. You want to implement, you want to do, and you want to fail fast. And most important, you want to be customer centric. Convenience and data first, and then the business will follow. That's my strong belief. And with all these difficult changes that we have to do as leaders, we should be encouraging our people, because sometimes it might feel a little bit strange in these new technologies, but we have to try, we have to make a step forward. And I hope that this gives a small overview of what the future brings and how we as leaders have to drive the digital transformation for our brands and businesses. With this, I would like to thank you all, and I would like to maybe come to one or two questions. Looking at my watch here, I'm actually 1 minute over, but maybe we have time for a question. Yeah, there's a question coming in: what tools we really need? And I would say very simple. Don't come from a tool side. There are 1,000 tools out there, and I can basically talk 2 hours about the tools. But you have to come from your users. What is their interest? What do they really want? What kind of behavior you can track? What kind of data you understand? And then from a human factor, what do they really need? And from that part onwards, then I would like to search for the right tools that are actually enabling that specific demand, and not the other way around. Not saying, we have here a nice tool and we need to implement it now, let's do some AI. That is definitely the wrong approach. Okay, I think that was a little bit of an overview. I would like to hand over back to Aaron. Thank you for your attention, and hope to see you in Europe very soon back in person. Cheers.